Good day, Father Matt Williams here in my parked car. I hope you're well. We're now in chapter 5 of Pope Francis's Apostolic Exhortation and the Joy of the Gospel. Chapter 5 is called Spirit-Filled Evangelizers. And so we're just going to look at a few paragraphs, 264 to 267. Okay, these few paragraphs are under the caption, Personal Encounter with the Saving Love of Jesus. And what Pope Francis is gonna emphasize in this little section is that when you have encountered the power of a friendship with Jesus, and the joy and the peace and the freedom and the life that he brings into your life, you can't but share it with others. You want others to experience the same joy. Just like if you went to the movies or you read a good book and you loved it and you were so excited about it, or had a good dinner, you're going to tell in conversation a lot of people about it and invite them to experience the same joy that you have, right? Now, I know it's a little different with faith in that it's not as easy to talk about your faith as it is to talk about what's popular in society. I get that. I understand that. But if we're willing to share about a movie that will come and go with the seasons, or a book that has nothing to do with our eternal salvation, how much more should our hearts be moved to and our minds be thinking about, how can I plant a seed or share this good news that's blessed my life so much with another person? So this is what he's wanting to awaken. If we've encountered this love of Christ, we must share it. It must overflow to another person, right? Personal encounter with Christ, with the saving love of Jesus. Okay, the primary reason for evangelizing is the love of Jesus which we have received, the experience of salvation which urges us to ever greater love of him. And he says this is all 264. What kind of love would not feel the need to speak of the beloved, to point him out, to make him known? Think about it. Like if you fall in love and you're married or engaged, aren't you going to tell other people about the one that you're engaged to? Like, right? So again, like the Lord, like we're invited to intimacy with him, with love, to fall in love with him, to speak about the one who is love, the desire of every heart, Jesus. If we do not feel an intense desire to share this love, so if we don't feel this intense desire, he says this, we need to pray insistently that he will once more touch our hearts. We need to implore his grace daily, every day, imploring his grace, asking him to open our cold hearts, mine can be so cold sometimes, and to shake up our lukewarm and superficial existence, standing before him with open hearts, letting him look at us. We see that gaze of love which Nathanael glimpsed on the day when Jesus said to Nathanael, I saw you under the fig tree. Being a good Jesuit, Pope Francis speaks about the gaze, and this is something to really ponder and to there's so much more to be said about the gaze. We can't capture it all right here, but the reality that the Father in heaven, the Son, the Holy Spirit gaze with love upon you. And Pope Francis is saying that we have to open our hearts to this gaze, open our lives to the fact that God gazes lovingly on his children. And he'll say that the best incentive for sharing the gospel comes from contemplating it with love. What? The gospel, contemplating the gospel with love, lingering over its pages and reading it with the heart. As we contemplate the gospel, we start to, the gaze of the Lord starts to take on a little bit more clarity. We recognize how much the Lord is love and how much he loves us. And that gaze gets filled out. We can begin to imagine the loving gaze of our God upon us, who came not to condemn the world, but to save the world through Christ, so that we may have eternal salvation. How good it is to stand before a crucifix, or on our knees before the Blessed Sacrament, the Eucharist, and simply to be in his presence. Okay? So the Eucharist, the crucifix, the Scriptures, wonderful ways to come into the Lord's presence through our eyes, through our senses, imagination, bringing ourselves into his presence, allowing him to gaze upon us. There doesn't need to be any exchange of words. Sometimes it's best to just close our mouths and to just be in his gaze, to receive that gaze, to meditate upon his word and reflect upon it, to contemplate it. Ultimately, contemplation is a being. It's being still and just knowing that he is God in his presence. These are some of the ways by which that love, Pope Francis says, that love can start to penetrate us and start to burn within us. 265, he says, sometimes we lose our enthusiasm for mission because we forget that the gospel responds to our deepest needs. So we go looking for love in all the wrong places. We think that we're going to find the ultimate love and the happiness that we want in the things of this world, which the things of the world need to be received as a blessing, as a grace, as a gift, not as the thing that's going to ultimately satisfy my heart, my life. We know this, right? We know this to be true, right? So Pope Francis is saying that if you're losing your enthusiasm, it might be because you're trying to fill your heart with comfort things, with comfort food, instead of allowing Jesus to bring peace into your life. Instead of maybe sitting in the desire, the longing, the agony, the anguish with the Lord and allowing him to come. We can fill it quickly with other things, right? He says the missionary is convinced through the working of the Spirit that there already exists in individuals and peoples an expectation, even if an unconscious one, of knowing the truth about God, about man, and about how we are to be set free from sin and death. So he says that if we're missionaries, we're called to be missionary disciples, right? That every human person has, whether they realize it or not, whether they're consciously saying this or not, they have within them this deep desire to know who is God, what is the meaning for my life, what is the truth about life here on this earth, what sets me free from sin, what sets me free from death. I just think of Ted Williams. I don't know if you remember that thing, right? And that his son froze his body, and they think that maybe, through some kind of scientific thing, that one day they'll be able to bring his body back and he'll be able to come back to life. That we know that's not true, right? But it's this desire to want to live forever. People have a desire to live forever. That's because that's the way God wired us, right? So with the joy of the gospel, we want to matchmake this truth about how to live forever and who helps us to live forever and makes it possible with the desire to live forever. So the missionary is convinced that all of humanity questions. The fact that you ask questions, that anyone asks questions, shows that we are incomplete, seeking more knowledge, right? Isn't that cool? The fact that you ask questions reveals a basic truth about yourself, that you're incomplete and you're seeking more knowledge, more truth, right? And it points to a deeper reality that you are desiring fulfillment, desiring happiness, desiring completion. We are only satisfied and completed in friendship with the Lord. And the missionary knows this. And this helps us to know that humanity is always on our side. We can propose the gift of the gospel and the joy of the gospel of friendship with Christ because we know humanity is on our side. What do I mean by humanity is on our side? Humanity, all of humanity is longing for completion, for ultimate fulfillment and happiness. And Jesus is the answer. And anyone else but Jesus will never satisfy. And they'll keep asking for more and searching for more. He will go on to say that before we go on to evangelize, we need to be evangelized first, and we're always a work in progress, right? We're always a work in progress. We're always in need of being evangelized or re-evangelized ourselves in our walking with the Lord, so that our proclamation takes on greater enthusiasm and power. He says that a true missionary who never ceases to be a disciple knows that Jesus walks with him, speaks to him, breathes with him, works with him. He senses Jesus alive with him in the midst of the missionary enterprise. So the importance of this continuing conversion and prayer life with him convicts us that the Lord is always with us, so that we in turn can go forth and bring his presence into the world. So your missionary disciple, let's continue to draw closer to the Lord so that we may be hungering to bring this good news to others. God bless you.